Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer. Say, did you hear about that superhero that got bit by the radioactive lawyer? He's got power of attorney. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at the DC deck building game, The Adventures of Supergirl and Lobo from Cryptozoic Entertainment. In the DC deck building game, The Adventures of Supergirl and Lobo, the two superheroes are going to go on a cosmic quest in order to punch out the most bad guys and score the most victory points. Now, this is a DC deck building game, but it's a kind of a different DC deck building game. We've seen two-player deck building games in the past that are kind of these head-on-head, attacking each other's, Batman versus the Joker, Green Lantern versus Sinestro, Flash versus Reverse Flash, etc., etc. And this game is a competitive game, but it's not exactly like that. Rather, Supergirl and Lobo, they are both competing to beat up the most bad guys and score the most victory points, as I mentioned. But there's a few kind of interesting ideas that are in play here that are new to the DC deck building game, and certainly this two-player format. Now, what you're going to do during setup is you're actually going to set up 4 location cards, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they both have an A and B side that have special actions that you can take on them. Now, what you're going to do is after you get your own starter cards, which again are 7 punch cards and 3 vulnerability cards, after you get those cards in your deck, your starter deck, you are going to actually make the nemesis cards. These are the big baddies you're trying to fight. And depending on kind of their level, you're going to place them between the locations. Now, you're going to shuffle some of them in the middle and actually put one on the bottom, one on top. And then you're going to actually put the cards from the main deck, which is stacked up top next to the weaknesses. You're actually going to put those down along the sides, both sides. But the numbers of the cards typically are going to be lower numbers the lower you get closer down to 1. You're also going to have kind of your space bus cards, which are kind of like your kick and your basic ideas here. And then, like I say, you're going to fill up the various card rows like that. Now, what's going to happen during the course of this game is you have standees. So both Supergirl and Lobo have a standee, and they are located on location number 1. Now, one of the new concepts in this game is you get more cards. You actually have a move ability. You may get cards that give you +1 move or +2 move, and you can move to the different locations. But when you do that, some important things are going to happen. Now, first of all, as I say, when you put those main deck cards out there, if any of those cards are villains, they actually leave the main deck, leaving a space there, and they go to on top of the nemesis that is in between the locations. Now, if you move from one location to another and you cross over any villains, no matter how many villains are there, they're going to attack you, and they're going to have various attacks that they can launch against you. And you got to do the attack for every card there. Now, if you have defense cards, you can go ahead and play the defense cards to avoid those, but generally speaking, you are going to have to deal with those attacks as you move through them, unless you take out those cards. Now, while you're on a location, you can purchase a card from either side. It doesn't necessarily have to be your side. You can purchase a card from either side at the bottom, from the cards at the bottom. You can go ahead, you can purchase those, and you can also take out any villain on either side, above or below you, so you can actually attack villains that way. Now, again, you're getting victory points for all the cards you get, or most of the cards you get, but critically, when you take out those nemesis, they are much more valuable in terms of victory points. Now, if you defeat a nemesis card, you're going to go ahead and take the nemesis card beneath it, and you will flip it face up if there's one there. And that nemesis card will then attack any adjacent hero on any of the locations that are adjacent to it. Now, critically in this game, when you are defeating villains and nemesis, they do not go into your discard pile and become part of your hand. Rather, they go into kind of a score pile. So that's a separate score pile that is something else. Now, of course, you've got superhero cards and Lobo cards. When it's your turn to purchase cards, you are not restricted simply to the Supergirl or Lobo cards. You can purchase any of those cards that you'd like. Now, some cards you have will also let you flip your location because different locations sometimes have positive or negative things you can do or you must do. So you can play these cards to flip the location that will give you more options and more things you can do, or perhaps avoid some things you don't want to do by flipping it. Again, at the end of your turn, you're going to refill any empty slots on either side of the main decks. You're going to kind of go down highest to lowest as best you can. You're going to trickle those cards down. But the players are advancing. They are trying to get closer and closer to the end, which is Darkseid. He is the big baddie in this. Now, if you can get all the way to Darkseid and defeat him, that will trigger the end game. However, if the first player defeats Darkseid, the second player will still get a chance to go. Now, something else that will trigger the end game is if you run out of the main deck cards. If you played all the main deck cards, you have to put more out, and there are none to go, then again, you trigger the end game. Now, once the end game is triggered, players are going to go ahead. They are going to take all the cards from their deck, their discard pile, if they've got any ongoing cards out there, and they're going to take all the cards from their score pile. You're going to go through, you're going to look at all the victory points, and whoever has the most points wins. DC Deck Building Game, The Adventures of Supergirl and Lobo. We'll get back to the review in just a moment. I want to take a minute to ask you to check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about history, books on history, military history. I even post some of my lectures for my classes on there. Please check that out. Please subscribe to that channel. And now, back to the review. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so DC Deck Building Game, The Adventures of Supergirl and Lobo. Now, my good friend Zach was up here recently, and we played this game. And we're both fans of the DC deck building game. We both really, really enjoy DC deck building games generally. And so we played this game, we got it out, and a few things right off the bat hit us. First of all, you got great artwork. The artwork here, the presentation is tremendous, like in every DC deck building game. Artwork really, really pops, and I really appreciated that as well. But this is, of course, a kind of a new version of this system. It would have, I think, been very easy for DC simply to do another Rivals, pick, a hero and a villain and do the back and forth. And those are all fun. I love all the Rivals sets, but I think it's cool that they're actually kind of going in a new direction and interesting, introducing kind of a new system within the larger DC deck building system, because the game itself, as far as the deck building, is very, very similar. Buying cards, discarding cards, playing cards, it's all very similar in that regard. And yet here, of course, we've got the standees. Now, we've seen standees before in Rebirth, which was the campaign game. So we've seen that before, but that was part of kind of a larger, like I say, campaign game here. And this is just kind of a basic two-player system using the DC Cerberus engine. So that was kind of refreshing, and I really like that they did something a little bit new, a little bit unexpected here with this and moving from location to location. Generally, the cards here are fun. Again, I've said this 100 times. The hallmark of a good deck building game is, can you build fun and interesting card combinations? Can you try to get those cards that you think are going to play off other cards that will give you more and more power each turn? And this game, of course, hits that. This game does it very well. Every DC game does it. There's no reason to be surprised here. This game does some really phenomenal combination building. There are some cards in here that really add to not only your power but your movement, because sometimes you want to move across the board either to attack a certain villain or to buy cards at a different location or to use the specific advantage of a location. So it's a very, very fun and interesting deck building system that lets you do that with the movement, giving you another kind of currency like the power. I really enjoyed that. It's also fun, too, when you consider the villains in between the locations and that they're going to attack you. So there's more of an incentive to try to take those guys out before you move on. And in fact, there is a real feel in this of almost a race as Lobo and Supergirl are advancing. And sometimes you do go back for various reasons. Sometimes you're forced back. But as you are advancing, you're getting closer to Darkseid. The pressure's on, and you want to do better, of course, than your opponent. So generally speaking, I'll tell you right now, Zach and I really enjoyed this game. Fun two-player, relatively quick, doesn't take too long, doesn't wear out its welcome. It is engaging and fun pretty much start to finish. Now, if I do have a caveat here. If I do have something I wasn't super wild about, I did feel like parts of the rule book during setup was not as intuitive as we were hoping. There were a few things there that just kind of didn't click with us initially. Of course, we figured it out and it did work, but I kind of felt like there were some moments in the rule book that could have used some more simplicity. I don't think it's a horrible rule book by any means. Believe me, I've read horrible rule books, but I did initially. There were a few things we were scratching our heads about. One thing too is when we got to Darkseid, it said, Darkseid is going to attack, but he's already flipped up, and you don't go over him. So how does he attack? And then it occurred to us, well, that specific location, the number 4 location, the villains just attack you every turn at the start of your turn. So, but that just for a minute we were kind of hung up on that until we got to read this other card that triggers off of that. So there were a few little things, a few minor issues we had, but very minor in what is otherwise, I think, a very, very fun game. I'm going to go ahead on the Cody scale. I'm going to give the DC deck building game, The Adventures of Supergirl and Lobo, a 7.5. We really had a lot of fun with this one. Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we'd ask you to please leave a comment for us here on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on Facebook, on X. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And we'd ask you to please like this video and subscribe to this channel. If you do really like what we present here on The Discriminating Gamer, I would humbly ask you to check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about history, military history, books on history, fun things like that. It would mean the world to me if you'd subscribe to that channel as well. And if you do really like what you see here, I would humbly ask you to click on the Super Thanks button and leave a tip. As a child, I always thought of my dad as a superhero. The Invisible Man.
Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band.
3-4. If you have a card that says block on it, you have to discard it. 2, 3, 4.
You
5.
You suck.